Good evening, spooks. Welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Jess, putting the J in JT Reads, and today we're going to go through all the books that I consumed in the month of May. So welcome back to the newsroom, aka the dining room where fruit goes to die, and I have here a stack of books, quite tall, although I say so myself, of books that I finished in May. The fire alarm is running out of batteries. I know I'm looking straight into the face of danger. We will replace the battery this weekend, do not fret. But anyway, more importantly, let's summarize May. So I read or consumed 7 books this month, which is about average for me. 4 of those books were physical books, 2 were audiobooks, and 1 was an ebook. And that may not quite tie up with what you can see in front of me, and that's because if I listen to an audiobook I like, or if I read an ebook I like, I then buy the book because I've got a problem. Okay. As always, I rated each book out of 5, and my average rating, come closer. My average rating for the month was 4 stars, something like 4.14 stars. I don't know how averages work. That confuses me. I asked my spreadsheet to do it. 4 stars, 4-star average rating. Mind-blowing, fantastic. I read 1,411 pages, which is a pretty good month for me, and I listened to 22 hours and 41 minutes of audiobooks. That's pretty average, but the pages was good. I think it's because I was on holiday that I read so many physical books, or read so many pages of physical books, because some of these are quite short. But in total, the pages talk. Anyway, less chatting, let's get into the good stuff. I can hear that my cat is coming. He heard my voice, and now he's coming. How long until he finds me? I hear the little footsteps. First up in May, I read Ariadne by Jennifer Saint, and I rated this a whopping 5 stars. Straight off the bat, first book of the month, 5 stars. I actually borrowed this from my friend, which is not ideal because I have tabbed it, but I did then also buy it. Did I buy it? I'm pretty sure I bought my own copy because I wanted the hardback, so I'll have to transfer my tabs and then return the book to the rightful owner. But this book was fantastic. Well, it was just a matter of time, wasn't it? You're a troublemaker. Ariadne, if you have not heard of it before, is a retelling of the Greek myth story of the Minotaur. And the story focuses mostly on the Minotaur's sister, Ariadne, as the title suggests, and her sister Phaedra. This is not ideal. Can you tell us what Ariadne is about? Or are you watching that van go by? Okay. It is a tale of men's power over women in Greek mythology, but how the women fight back. And I live for these stories. Ariadne is a little bit of a gentler story, but by no means gentle, just gentler. And I really enjoyed it anyway. I'm not giving any spoilers in this video. Absolutely not. Next up in the month of May, I read Crossroads by Laurel Hightower, and this sweet little horror novella is very similar to Stephen King's Pet Sematary. Quite similar vibes. It's just a person. It is a mother's grief at losing her son and the lengths at which she will go to bring him back, no matter what she brings back. Okay. Are you titillated? Are you excited by that summary? Because if not, you're on the wrong channel. We are here for horror novellas where spooky happenings happen. I rated it 4 stars, by the way. I missed that point. This is great. We've got a system, but the system is in disarray. We've got company. Next up, via audiobook. But as you can see, I bought the physical copy because I loved it. I rated it 4.5 stars, almost a 5-star, very near perfection. It is When I Hit You by Meena Kandasamy. Wow. The audiobook for this almost reads like a novel in verse. It's very poetic in its language, and it centers on a woman and her life and her escape out of domestic violence. It packs a freaking punch. So beautifully written, it is lyrical, it is poetic, and it is powerful. So without giving too many spoilers of the book or too many spoilers of JT Reads lore, I related to this book quite deeply, and a quote at the start of the book that got me in a chokehold was, "A long interminable fight, a war of attrition to exhaust me into defeat." And when I tell you, I plucked out that audiobook and, whoa, immediately wrote that down, because that is so on the nose. The constant fighting to be heard to the point where you are so exhausted from trying to be considered a human being, so you just accept defeat. Wow. Mina, you have me in a chokehold. Two other quotes that caught me off guard were as follows. "I resolutely buy myself an uneasy peace." It ties in with the first quote I shared, where it is just a defeat. And the last quote is, "With me, I know he will always choose cruel." I think at this point, I had a tear in one's left eye, because I'm a human being that is now in a very loving relationship. And I cannot imagine choosing cruelty with anybody, first of all, but especially with somebody that I have chosen to share my life with. Narcissists explain. Okay, the silence is deafening. I highly recommend. Had to buy the copy of the book. I think it was something like £3 from Wob. It's a bit sticky, but we don't ask questions we don't want to know. Next up, when I was on my holidays, I read Before the Devil Knows You're Here by Autumn Krause. It is a glorious cover, a horror novella again. We love a horror novella here, but unfortunately I rated this 3 stars. Now let me tell you for why. I had a very similar experience when I read My Throat an Open Grave. If this was advertised as a dark romance, sold. 4 or 5 stars, fantastic. But this was labelled as a horror, an horror. And was this horrifying? Well, no, it was not. It was not. There is a character at the very start. He is a creature of the woods. They call him the man of sap. He has tree sap spilling from his tear ducts. Horrifying, right? Right. And then I think the 2nd or 3rd chapter is the story from his point of view, and we hear his, okay, it's upsetting, but his sob story as to how he became the man of sap. So that makes him no longer horrifying, because I now sympathise with him, and I know his story, and I know he's not evil or a creature from the underworld. He's just a man down on his luck. The romance is good. I'm not mad about it. That's a lie, I'm kind of mad about it. It felt a little bit like whose trauma is worse, and the 2 people involved in the romance start off by not really liking each other very much, or certainly not trusting each other, and they start to break down those walls. Not interesting enough for you? Well, I agree. They start to break down their walls slowly, bit by bit, and it does feel a little bit like a battle of the traumas. I need to find my notes on this. I wrote down, "This is a little like petulant children saying my trauma is worse than yours," and that makes it very hard to support a romance between these 2 characters. There was no care or consideration to how the other one was feeling until towards the end. It was very much just like, yeah, you're struggling, but I'm struggling bigger. And to be fair, the female main character had lost her mother in the past, had recently lost her father, and her brother has been kidnapped. She does not have good things happening. However, she meets this man who is on his quest, and she immediately is like, "You have no concerns in your life is peachy." And he's like, "Honey, you don't even know me." And she's like, I'm paraphrasing by the way, "My dad has passed away and my brother is missing, so literally nobody on this planet could have it any worse than I currently have it." And he's like, "Okay, bet." So that kind of annoyed me. It is very fantastical and whimsical, and I think it read more like Diana Wynne Jones's The Game that I read last month or the month before. It's more of a kind of children's horror than an adult horror, if it's horror at all. There was also a couple of occasions where I was mildly offended as a reader, because the author does this thing where they will remind you of what happened previously in the book through the dialogue. And I don't like that. This is a less than 200-page book, I think. I don't need to be reminded, I'm paying attention. I swear. So one of the characters will say to the other ones, "Remember when we saw that earlier? That links to this thing." But I am a grown-up. I can put 2 and 2 together myself. The only reason why I bumped this up to a 3-star was because the plot twist at the end got me. Didn't know it was coming, didn't know how it all tied together, so that did make it a 3-star. It was good. If you like dark romance with a little bit of spooky vibes, 100% yes. If you're looking for a horror novella, no. Next up, via ebook, although I have the physical copy right here, I read The Wolf Den by Elodie Harper. I read it on this here iPad whilst I was in Wales, and oh my gosh, she's a 5-star for sure. If you see my reading vlog, you will see me mark her down as a 5-star. Because, wow. The Wolf Den, if you haven't heard of it already, follows Amara, who once was a beloved, that's the word, daughter of a wealthy doctor who passes away and her life goes into complete disarray. That rhymes. And she ends up being bought as a slave and becomes a prostitute in a brothel in Pompeii. And this tale follows her endeavours to escape enslavement. And it is beautiful. Perfect no notes. I was hooked from the very first page, and I whizzed through this for what I would class as a pretty chunky book. I whizzed. I was so enthralled in Amara's story. In fact, every character in the book is so unbelievably well-rounded. The antagonists especially, so well-rounded. There were moments when I hated the antagonist, and there were moments when I hurt for them so badly. An author that can make you feel that about somebody you're supposed to dislike, top tier. I have the second book and the third book ready to go, and I'm so excited to read it. 5 stars, it's upside down. 5 stars. Next up, I read the physical copy of Bloom by Delilah S. Dawson. I rated this a sneaky little 4 stars. It is a horror novella, short. It is sapphic horror. We absolutely love to see it here. For a horror novella, the horror part came a lot later. And that's not a bad thing because it was very atmospheric. It was building up to something and you knew something was coming, but you didn't know what it was. And it was tantalizing. The descriptions in this are delicious. The foods, the outfits, the gardens, the flowers, everything is so beautiful, and it just builds and builds and builds that tension because everything is so lovely. You're thinking, when's it all gonna go to shit? When's the horror coming? And then the horror comes, and it creeps in your door like a little kitten from next door, you know, that you let in once to have a lap of water. And then all of a sudden, it's a lion. You have a lion in your house and everything's being torn apart. And then it's lights out, the book ends. Fantastic. I'm beginning to think I should have rated it 5 stars. You know, when you reflect a little bit, I think because the ending is quite open, not open to interpretation, but open as to what happens next. I wanted to know, but if I had known, would that have ruined the story? I think the reason why it was so shocking and horrifying is because it ended like that. So I'm beginning to think I did this a disservice and it should be 5 stars. But for now, it was a 4-star, it was incredible. I loved the sapphic representation. I loved how the main character considers herself a straight woman. She then meets this woman and is immediately captivated by her and has feelings for her that she hasn't had for women before. And never once does this book dabble in any internalized homophobia. There is never, oh, I shouldn't feel this way about a woman, or how will I tell people that I know? Nothing. It is just, this woman is pretty and I want her to be mine. That's all there was to it, and I loved that representation. It was beautifully done. Delilah S. Dawson, I'll be picking up anything else you write. Thank you very much. Last but not least, on the 31st, that is today, the 31st of May, I finished this audiobook, and it was touch and go there for a minute because I needed to finish this book to complete my TBR game. So we weren't messing around today, okay? And we finished it. The physical copy I have here is actually the second in the series. I listened to the first in the series via audiobook. I bought this a year or maybe 2 years ago, thinking it was the first in the series. Turns out it's the second. So it's taken me this long to actually read the first, but I listened to the audiobook. It was very, very good. The book is The House Witch by Delamhach, and this is the second of the series. But I read the first in the series, and it is a cozy, witchy fantasy following a male witch, which I don't see very often. I enjoyed the male main character. I enjoyed having a male narrator, and for it still to be cozy and whimsical, it was very well done. I rated it 3.5 stars. The only reason why it slipped from a 4-star is because the first half was extremely cozy and lovely and whimsical. The last 10-20% was romantic and exciting. There was just a gap in the middle where there was quite a bit of angst and action, and I know that a story needs that, but I wish that they had maybe tied in a little bit more of the whimsy with it. I could have done with more magic, more lovely descriptions of food and the castle, but I felt it was lacking just a tiny little bit in the middle. So it dropped down to a 3.5, still extremely respectable score. Loved it, and I am reading The House Witch #2 in the month of June. So obviously keen to continue. I think there is also a third. There may even be a fourth, I'm unsure. But either way, I'm going to continue with the series because I really enjoy it. The covers are so lovely, and I'm interested to see what happens to the characters in the future. And that's a wrap on the 7 books that I read or listened to this month. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be uploading my June TBR game very shortly, so keep an eye out for that and what I have to read to complete that TBR challenge. But until then, thank you again, and I hope to see you in a video very, very soon. Bye!
Let me show you a place where you gon' wanna move your feet until they start to